Hello and welcome. You're watching News 9. Another aviation player is down. Go First, owned by the Wadia Group, filed for insolvency today and said it can no longer continue to meet financial obligations. Now, the airline filed an application for voluntary insolvency resolution proceedings before the National Company Law Tribunal (NCLT). Earlier today, the airline announced suspension of all flights for 3rd and 4th of May, which came as a surprise not just to the flyers but also aviation regulator. The DGCA issued show cause notice to the airline and said that the airline's actions were not in compliance with the rules and would lead to passenger inconvenience. Now, Go First has been reeling under pressure for a while now. The airline had grounded 30 aircrafts as of 31st of March, including 9 of which on the lease payments are due. The company has blamed faulty engines of Pratt Whitney and non-supply for grounding of 50% of its fleet and its present crisis. Now, Union Minister Jyotiraditya Scindia says that the government has been assisting the airline in every possible manner, will continue to do so, and has spoken to all the stakeholders. That said, there is no end to the plight of people who are going to be using Go First and people who had booked their flights for 3rd and 4th of May. With me at this point in time in the studio, my colleague Kartik Malhotra. Also joining us, Sindhu Bhattacharya, who is a senior aviation journalist. Kartik, coming to you first. The problems with the airline were in making for a while.
They've been in the making, and in fact, it's not the first time that we've seen the non-supply of Pratt & Whitney's faulty engines, and that has led to grounding of the Airbus A320 Neo fleet of Go First. In the past, we've seen the same aircraft and the same engine problem also with SpiceJet. And SpiceJet has also in the past had to ground its fleet. And this comes about 4 years after Jet Airways was grounded for a different reason altogether. And the timing is particularly bad because we've seen pre-pandemic aviation traffic. We've seen passengers taking to the skies more frequently in higher quantity than ever before. And in fact, Go First itself has had some good numbers. In fact, on 30th April, just 2 days ago, it had the highest passenger traffic it ever carried at about 4.56 lakh on a single day. And if you look at the Jan to March quarter, we've seen Go First carrying almost 3 million passengers and commanding a 7.8% market share. And if you discount IndiGo, it was fairly competitive on market share with all other airlines right now, commanding a market share between 6% to 8% roughly. So it was really holding on well, but unfortunately the decision has come at a time that the airline is facing a severe financial crunch and can no longer sustain its operations.
Okay. Sindhu, is there more to it than meet the eyes? Is it just the faulty engines of Pratt & Whitney? What exactly is troubling Go First?
See, in the aviation business, when an aircraft is AOG, which is aircraft on ground, then that means that the airline is unable to use that asset while it has to continue to face payments and the cost for keeping an aircraft on ground. So the lease payments have to be made to the lessors. The lease rentals have to be paid whether the airline uses the aircraft or not. The airline loses a lot of customer earning. Each flight, the earnings on each flight help sustain the business. So that is lost. Also, advance bookings, which are made on the basis of the number of aircraft available, that also goes for a toss. So AOG is one of the worst things that can happen to an airline. And as far as Go First is concerned, it has been speaking about a number of aircraft increasingly incrementally on the ground. Right now, on May 1st, the airline has said that 50% of its fleet is on the ground. There is no airline which can actually operate with 50% of its fleet inoperable. So I think it's a very prudent decision for them to go and submit themselves to the NCLT and go for bankruptcy proceedings.
Okay, they are going to go for bankruptcy proceedings. Also joining us, Captain Shakti Lumba, who dons a lot of hat, but let's call him an aviation expert for now. Sir, you've written about Go First. You've written about the problems that the Go First is going through at the moment and what could be the possible solution. Tell us what's in line for Go First.
Yeah, you need to go back a little bit. Go First problem started with the Pratt & Whitney engine. IndiGo has the same engine. IndiGo does not have the problems of Go First. Why? See, buying an aeroplane is not giving orders. The the crux of buying an aeroplane is the nutshell of the purchase agreement. And that's where experience is required. IndiGo had the experience of Rakesh Gangwal, who built in all the protection clauses. Go ahead, no such experience. I don't think Akasha has such experience. And I don't think Air India has this experience. You can get a honey deal, but it's the fine print that comes. And it's the fine print that got Go into trouble. And IndiGo scot-free.
Okay. What fine print are we talking about here?
The compensations, guarantees and warranties that each original equipment manufacturer would provide for whatever is in the aeroplane. Don't forget, an airline buys a shell from Airbus. Each item that goes into the aeroplane has to be negotiated separately. Engines, brakes, tires, avionics, everything. Now, that's when the prices come down. That's what brings the price down. If you have a 470 aircraft order, you are able to dictate which engine, how many engines. Okay, that'll give you a price reduction. Now comes to the guarantees and warranties. The mistake all Indian carriers make, they are clueless on guarantees and warranties.
Okay. Okay. I want Sindhu to come in here. Sindhu, do you agree that the problem was with the management perhaps, and they could have had a better deal with Pratt & Whitney because IndiGo uses the same engines, is not facing the same problems as Go First?
What Captain Lumba said is obviously correct. There is a difference, and anyway, there is a difference in negotiations also because of the size of the order. So it's a bit difficult to compare the size of Go and IndiGo. IndiGo is much bigger in terms of the order size for its aircraft. So, and obviously they've probably used a better negotiating framework to get all of this in. And remember, Go First has already said that had Pratt & Whitney honored the arbitration award, they would have not only got more engines, they would have also got some money under the arbitration award. They have already filed against Pratt & Whitney in a Delaware court. That's what they've said today. So obviously there is also an issue of the agreement and the contract under which the engines were supposed to come.
Okay. Do you know, they say they're going to be operational back again from 5th of May. Do you see that happening, Captain Lumba?
No. Once they file for bankruptcy, I don't see it happening.
Okay. Sindhu, you know, DGCA in very harsh words, in fact, said that the actions of the airline were not in compliance with the rules. The manner in which it happened, we were not kept in loop. We were informed later on passengers are going to be inconvenienced. What should have been the ideal way of doing it?
See, as per the Air Operation Permit or AOP, the airline is supposed to inform the DGCA in writing that this is, they have a schedule. It's a scheduled carrier. So when they are going off schedule, when they are messing with their schedule, when they are cancelling a large number of flights, they should be ideally informing the DGCA in writing. But I don't think this situation was really very much under their control. And since they've already gone for bankruptcy filing, I am not sure what action DGCA can now take in retrospect.
Okay. So what happens from here on, Karthik? They file for insolvency. What's the way forward? What's the recourse for Go First?
I believe the resolution in the NCLAT is now going to be underway. Apparently, meetings are going to be scheduled this week itself. In fact, that's what the statement said. And therein, it could take weeks, it could take months before the real resolution is passed. And it could be months before the airline is actually, declared bankrupt or insolvent. Until then, I think it's going to be very difficult for Go First to take to the skies again. So this is obviously bad news, and like Sindhu was also mentioning, in fact, every single seat that goes unoccupied is a loss of money for an airline. And here we are talking about 50% of the fleet, which is practically grounded, unserviceable, and not going to take to the skies. So I think the timing that way for Go First has been okay. Instead of bearing those losses for a continued period of time, they've decided to go to the bankruptcy court. They've decided to go to NCLAT and declare themselves insolvent.
Okay.
So they've invested as a company, the Wadia Group, for the last 17 years that they've been in operation. They've invested about 6,500 crores cumulatively in keeping the airline afloat. And I think this is where the management takes a call that, okay, stop loss. We aren't going to bear any more losses, and let the judicial process take its due course.
And in your assessment, did they stop loss at the right time?
I think the problem with the Pratt and Whitney engines is not new. And it should not have come as breaking news to the company. They should not have waited for 50% of the fleet to be grounded before coming to this decision. But again, as it happens in large-scale corporate multinational negotiations, they must be hoping for some positive news coming from Pratt and Whitney. And after the management assessed that perhaps there isn't any good news likely to come from the US engine maker, they decided that this is where we stop loss. So in hindsight, yeah, the timing could have been advanced by a couple of weeks, but we are all smarter in hindsight. So good that the decision has been taken now than later. Of course, I feel for the passengers who had booked their tickets, and God knows when they will get their refunds on the tickets and book more expensive flights, alternate flights for their travel over the next 2 days and subsequently over the next few weeks. But I think as a corporation, they've done it. It's timely. Well, is it ahead of time? Is it too late? I think it's been filed, and that's a good thing.
Okay. So before I go to Captain Lumba and perhaps talk about problems that are plaguing aviation sector at large, I want to talk to you, Sindhu. Tell us, do you see a timeline here? 3rd and 4th of May is what Airline says, but do you see Go First taking to air anytime soon? What about people who've booked their tickets for 6th, 7th or 8th of May?
See, the airline is unlikely to take to the air again for the simple reason that one, we haven't seen any airline which was grounded actually go back. Look at Kingfisher 2012, look at Jet Airways, and now this airline, and I'm only talking of the larger dual carriers. Second, once a company files in the NCLT, then the process takes over, and there is a resolution professional who will be appointed by the tribunal. That resolution professional will then decide what to do with the company, how to basically take care of the creditors of the company, what to do with the company, can it survive, can it be sort of resuscitated. So there is really no chance of the airline actually resuming flights anytime soon.
Okay. Captain Lumba, this came as a shock, I think, to flyers, to us as well. We were aware of the problems with, Go First, and we were aware of what was happening with airlines and with Go First particularly for a while now. We were talking about it. However, you've written about it, and this is not a problem specific to one airline. This is a problem with the entire aviation sector at large. There are lacunas plaguing aviation sector. There is a reason as to why every other day we hear of one or the other airline either going bankrupt or not continuing with its operations. What, according to you, are some of the major problems or challenges with the aviation sector?
Until the government of India continues to consider aviation as luxury and tax it at every point, the airlines will always be in trouble. Simple. There are two issues. RASK is the revenue per seat kilometer, and CASK is the cost per seat kilometer. As long as your costs are higher than your revenue, you're in trouble. Everyone is cutting everybody. Everyone is flying below cost. There will be trouble. Go's trouble is not Pratt and Whitney. Go has been in trouble for a long time. In my mind, Go's problem has been micromanaging the airline. I mean, Go has gone through how many? 5, 6, 7 CEOs in so many years.
Okay.
No CEO can stay. Why? Because the owners, the promoters micromanage the airline. Now, let me compare it with IndiGo where I have experience. The promoters never micromanage the airline. They got the professionals, they gave them a target and say, achieve it. They only met us once a year when I was there for 5 years to review our performance. The professionals were allowed to work. Any airline that starts, the promoters start micromanaging is finished. Jet Airways went down the chute because Naresh Goyal started micromanaging it. Kingfisher went down the chute because Malia started micromanaging it. You can't micromanage an airline if you know nothing about it.
Okay. Sindhu, with Go First now almost out of picture, we don't know when it's going to come back. Jet Airways, not very good news coming in there. The options for flyers are very, very limited in the aviation space.
You know, even before Go stopped flying, IndiGo has about 56% or more of the market share. So anyway, at least every second flyer, a domestic flyer, is taking an IndiGo. So of the remaining 45%, the Air India group has about, say, 26, 27%. So really, the choice has really, you know, Go had about, I think, 7 or 7.8 or close to 8% share of the market. So quickly, the other airlines will probably fill in the gap through capacity deployment by, you know, taking the passengers. As far as passengers are concerned, there is just one full service carrier, which is Air India Vistara combined, which will become Vistara is going to merge into Air India in the next few months. So we will have only one full service carrier and 3 or 4 other low cost airlines.
Where does it leave passengers in terms of ticket prices?
See, ticket prices had already started surging since January or maybe from December, because the demand has been extremely robust. And airlines now have a little bit of pricing power. They are obviously also at the back end being hurt because of the rise in costs, several factors, fuel and ex-fuel. So I don't think the customers will find super cheap tickets in this upcoming summer season in any case. With Go First going down, I don't think that the prices are going to soften anytime soon.
Okay. But are they going to get more expensive?
Yes, definitely. There will be an uptick. By how much, that remains to be seen. We are already predicting a very, very high summer rush. As you know, that airlines follow a pricing mechanism where each, you know, for every certain number, each time certain number of seats get filled, the price of the remaining seats goes up. So anyway, if the occupancy of the aircraft is high, then the ticket prices are definitely going to be high.
Okay. You know, Karthik, air traffic is at an all-time high. We are back to pre-COVID levels. In fact, we've far exceeded pre-COVID levels. At a time like this, a major aviation player holding about 7 to 8% of the market share goes down is going to hurt, you know, Indian consumers, Indian passengers, big time.
No doubt.
And I think what concerns me at this stage is also the fact that there are just 3 dominant players left with, as Sindhu rightly mentioned, Air India Vistara being the whole major player only.
Yeah, so IndiGo, of course, being the largest shareholder in that sense, the largest stakeholder in the overall aviation pie, Air India, Vistara combined being number 2. And unfortunately, pretty much like telecom, it seems that we are heading towards a duopolistic kind of a market scenario in aviation as well. Having said that, yeah, there are going to be fringe players, there are going to be new entrants. We've seen Akasa take to the skies. SpiceJet continues to survive, so there could be a few fringe players here or there, but that could lead to further consolidation also over time in the aviation space, leaving us with 2 real players, and that is going to play havoc with pricing.
Okay. Captain Lumba, what can the government do at this point in time? Jyotiraditya Scindia there immediately spoke after Jet in fact, after Go First filed for bankruptcy and said we are going to do everything possible to make sure that we help the airline. But what exactly can it do? What is in government's power and authority to do?
Nothing. Either he puts in cash or he's just talking to his head.
And do you see...
Go is... See, the MOCA has no control on fuel prices, on user charges, because that's something else that ERA looks after. All he can do is smoothen the process. But once the airline is down, I'm sorry, it's down. Now, Karthik was talking about monopolistic. The great thing is going to happen is Vistara getting merged with Air India. Well, there will be only one monopoly full service carrier, Air India, right? And there'll be three low-cost carriers. So at that point of time, Air India can charge the sky on its full service. That is why I see IndiGo coming in and trying to bring in long-haul, low-cost operations.
Okay.
Because, and they will do well, because they have to break Air India's long-haul monopoly. If the old Monopolies and Restrictive Trade Practices Act was in force, the merger of Vistara and Air India would not have been allowed. But present, the Competition Commission of India, I don't know how to say it, they will okay it. And that's when the consumer, who they're supposed to protect, is going to go down the chute. I'm sorry, I say it as I see it.
Not at all. Not at all, sir. Happy to hear you and happy to hear your understanding of how it's going to pan out in the aviation space. Remember, Go First has now filed for bankruptcy. It will not take to skies on 3rd and 4th of May. So for 2 days, there'll be no operations. On 5th of May, it plans to resume flights. We don't know whether that's going to happen. Insolvency will take some time, but Go First, another aviation player, domestic low-cost aviation player, falling off the radar and not sure when it's going to be back up again. We will continue to track that story and more. Thanks for watching.